Hello and welcome to BMC Discovery. In this video, we are going to take a look on how to modify the disk configuration without using the GUI option, but instead using command line utility twdiskutils. For this demo, let's take a look at this example where Discovery version is 24.1. Let's log into the Discovery appliance using System User. If the user interface is available, you can go to Administration and Disk Configuration. The newly added disks from the VMware would be available over here in this UI with the label of the disk and the name after that as New Disk. Here is the drop down where you can select which part of the data store component you would like to move to this particular new disk. If you select data store data and click on the button Start and then click on the button OK, once you click on OK, the data store data, which is right now on the system disk, would be moved to the dev SDB disk and the partition would be taken care by the Discovery appliance. I am going to click on Cancel. Now let's consider a scenario where this user interface is not available, either because the disk is full and you are not able to access the appliance and you need to move the data store data to the new disk which is already added into the appliance. You need to take care of this activity from the command line. Now let's take a look on how we can do that. Now let's consider the scenario where this user interface is not available. For example, the data store data has consumed the disk space and this has resulted into appliance shutdown. In this scenario, the services are not up and running and user interface is not available. In this case, you have to stop the Discovery services and shut down the virtual machine. Then use the VMware console to add a new disk which is sufficient for the data store. Plus growth. Request your team to not partition or format that disk. Just add it into the appliance. After that, power on the virtual machine. And then from command line, we can move the data store data to this newly added disk. Let's take a look on how we can do that. So let's log into the appliance from command line with Tideway user. Let's check the status of services and make sure that they are all on the stopped status. If the services are still running, then use the option stop in order to stop all the services. Once this is done, let's take a look at the next step. Execute the command sudo fdisk-l. This will tell you the number of disks available in your appliance. Here we can see that there are two disks, SDA and SDB. Here we can see that the SDA is the system disk, which is already used by appliance and it is partitioned, and SDB is the new disk which is added from the VMware console and it is not partitioned. So dev SDB is the disk where we need to move our data store. The next step is make sure that you are inside USR Tideway directory. This is our working directory. Then execute screen command. The screen command is necessary over here to allow us to restore the terminal session if the connection is dropped. To move the data store to the new data, we will use the command line utility called as twdiskutils. Here you can see the utility with the help and the option available with it. Here you can see that you can use this utility to add a new partition to the new disk and add a new Discovery partition to the new disk and move one of the BMC Discovery components in it. The movable BMC Discovery data is the data store logs, debug logs, record and pool data, and backup data. Here is the example of twdiskutils command where you can create the swap partition of 2 GB on the disk dev SDB and at the same time move the data store log to the dev SDB disk as well. In the next example, you can move the data store data to the disk dev SDC and at the same time move the debug logs to dev SDD. And here you can see the other options available with it. Now we will use this utility to move the data store data to the new disk. So we will pick the utility, then we will move data store data to the new disk dev SDB. And at the same time, we will also create a new swap partition of 8 GB on the same disk dev SDB. Click on enter, say yes, and now you can see that the partition is started. And now you can see that the data store data is getting copied from the older system disk to the new disk SDB. You can check the progress of this activity from over here. And in order to see the logs in detail, you can take a look at the log file. If you log into the appliance from tool like WinSCP, in USR, Tideway and log folder, this is the log file called as tw_disk_utils.log. In this particular file, you can see the activity performed by this utility. You can monitor its progress, and if there is any error encountered, it will be available over here. Now let's go back and check the progress from the command line again. Here we can see that the new swap partition are enabled, etcfs tab is enabled, and it is now up to date, and the data store is moved to the new disk. Let's execute the command df-h, and here we can see that this is the data store, which is now moved to the new disk SDB. And let's execute swap on-s option, and here you can see that the swap partition is created on SDB. Now that the activity is completed, let's start the services of the appliance. Here we can see that the services are started successfully. Now let's go back to user interface. Let's log in with system user. Let's go to administration and disk configuration. Here you can see that SDB is now additional disk, and the current usage shows that there is a swap partition of 8 GB, and the data store data is now moved here from system disk. That's all in this session for right now. Thank you for watching.